All right, Isaac Harris. So we've been talking about the Knicks and the Mavericks. Obviously, the Mavericks played in MSG. Jalen Brunson has some ties to that organization, and Ian Begley came out with a report recently. And I'm not sure this is a report, but it was poised as a report on Twitter. And so this is where you can kind of read some of these stories and then see it talked about on Twitter. You have to go back to the actual source of it. This was from Ian Begley. He's obviously, Knicks beat writer and all that kind of stuff. On another note, this is just my opinion, but I won't rule out the possibility of the Knicks pursuing Jalen Brunson until the day Brunson announces his retirement. Brunson is a 2022 unrestricted free agent. He is young, skilled lead guard. Brunson has plenty of ties to this Knicks organization. Brunson's father, Rick Brunson, was one of the team president's first NBA clients, Leon Rose. Leon Rose also represented Jalen Brunson. Rick Brunson, a former Knick, has coached with Knicks coach Tom Thibodeau. So there's all kinds of different connections between Jalen Brunson and the Knicks. Plus, we just mentioned the Knicks didn't play with a point guard tonight because they tried with Kemba Walker and it didn't really work. And they got Emmanuel quickly, and he's just really not ready at this point. Derrick Rose is out, all that kind of stuff with Knicks point guards. What do we think about the connection between Jalen Brunson, and the Knicks?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that rumor started I feel like the first thing we saw was back last year, and I think it was Bagley who reported that. It sounds like this one was more just him speculating, having fun with it type thing. But that this has been a legit rumor in the past, like going back, like a year ago. So that the Knicks were at least monitoring the situation. They were fans of Brunson. This is why I've thrown out the Knicks whenever we, talk about anything with the offseason of Brunson's contract. If there's a team out there that, creates the space, has the space, and says, Jalen Brunson, we think you're really good. We want to make you our starting point guard. We want you to have the ball in your hands all the time. And if it's in New York for Leon Rose, for a situation like that, Rick Brunson, the story we've talked about, we've always heard, that's the type of situation that I'm scared about, right? If they're coming offering around the same as what Dallas is, and it's a starting point guard spot, and it's the connections, you can't tell me if you're a Mavericks fan, they're like, yeah, but him and Luka are friends. Well, that's cool, but that's still that scares me some if you plan on keeping JB in Dallas. So yeah, I think they are a team that I'm watching in regards to Brunson, whether it's free agency or if there's something spicy at the deadline that they try to steal Brunson away.
The good thing is that this team has $114 million signed up, the Knicks do next season, and they also will have to probably pay RJ in that as well. He's going into it this next season with a non-guaranteed. So they've got some things to figure out, some cap stuff. They don't have cap space to spend on a guy like Jalen Brunson to come in and just offer this monster thing. So it would have to be some sort of sign and trade or some kind of other machination of the cap for them to get Jalen Brunson, but it is something to monitor. It is pretty interesting. We mentioned Rick Brunson played 69 games for the Knicks in 3 seasons.
Nice.
Rick Brunson bounced around a ton. He played for the Blazers, the Clippers, the Knicks, the Bulls, the Rockets, the Celtics, the Seattle Supersonics, and the Raptors. He played for so many teams in his career.
But even if you look at the Knicks, and let's just say that they are pretty active at the deadline, I'll be really curious on what they try to go after, because even looking at their assets, they got some first, they got the 2 Dallas first that, in the KP trade that they can use in a deal.
No, they already used one of them.
That's true. Yeah,
Quentin Grimes. Yeah,
Grimes, get your shots up, bro.
He did.
But, they still got one of those picks. As far as their young pieces, are they really going to give up RJ? They're only going to give up RJ probably, for some star type of player. But I don't know what the Randall situation looks like for them. But outside of that, it's you're looking at pretty much, expiring contracts next season. Derrick Rose is basically expiring next season. Alex Burks is basically expiring next season. They have these non-guaranteed, numbers on those third year. Yeah, I thought Nerlens had a couple blocks tonight were really nice. I'm just really curious, where this team's going. And even if they did call, on before the trade deadline, I was like, hey, we want Jalen Brunson. I just don't even know what realistically that they would have that I would be interested in. I know the Mitchell Robinson piece, he would fit in Dallas, but I'm sorry. I'm personally not here for a Brunson for Mitch Robinson swap. I I just think Brunson's a better player. I think he means more to Dallas as that secondary creator and playmaker.
Yeah, you start going through it and you're like, well, if the Knicks were so interested in Brunson, wanted to trade for him, the top two assets that they have are Randall and RJ Barrett. They're not sending them to the Mavs for Jalen Brunson. Rich Robinson and Brunson make just about the same amount of money, so you could sort of try to throw something together. And so then you're like, well, what if they did like a Powell and Brunson for Mitchell Robinson plus like another salary? Okay, well, the other ones are Derrick Rose, Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, Kemba, and that's like the rest of their contracts. Like those are the only players, and none of those interest you enough to try and make a deal if you're the Mavericks. So, yeah, I don't think this is anything that could happen between Brunson and the Knicks until the offseason. And even then, it would be some kind of sign and trade, and who knows where it would go then.
Yeah, I'm still keeping my eye on Kimba though. I'll be really curious on. I know he's out this game, his knee stuff and all of that, but
Yeah, to
there's
do
still
what?
that. Well, I'm just saying there's still that Dallas connection. Like if Dallas swung for like a bigger trade, let's say before the deadline, they swing for a big time trade, and it's like,
Like Ben Simmons, whose number one option and number one target is to go to Dallas, according to that random
you,
person I've never heard
you
of
can't
today.
say that on a pod, then somebody's gonna like quote you or something.
It was there. You can find the tweet. Go find the tweet. Somebody tweeted and
I
said that.
love random people on Twitter. But no, like let's say Dallas does swing for some like bigger trade and it did require Brunson and a couple and they basically cleared up like an offensive spot off the bench for like a vet guard because we know Kid likes his vet guards, right? Like we've seen this, but the Brandon Knights and Trey Burke is on the bench still, and Isaiah Thomas, they gave him a shot and all this stuff. Like Kimba's still a guy that I'm like keeping tabs on. The agent, the past history of Dallas been interested in him, very, very close to getting him back before the Boston deal. That if it's like, hey, if Dallas really shakes the roster and stuff, and then they turn around like right at the buzzer and land Kimba to come off the bench or something, I wouldn't be like shocked by that. And because he is, he makes what $8 million this year. I don't know what his spot is in that rotation when he's fully healthy and all that. And I wouldn't mind Kimba coming off the bench for a team for $8 million.
Yeah, and also if like the Dragic thing still doesn't work out, which it still feels like we're waiting on that, but if that never turns into anything, then yeah, that's another direction you could go if you're the Mavericks.
Yeah, yeah.
Kemba.
Obviously, I wouldn't do both of those together, but it is that thing of like, okay, if they do have this like kind of vet guard spot off the bench, they want a veteran point guard. If Dragic doesn't work, oh, what about Kimba? What's some other vet point guards out there we could go for?
Yep, there you go. That's how the Mavericks lost